We've entered the archaeological site of Knossos, just out of the city of Heraklion on the island of Crete. Knossos is one of the most important archaeological sites in Europe, not just in Crete, not just in Greece, but in the whole of Europe. And the reason for this is that this is the place where the very first European civilization existed. And it's just about 6 kilometers outside of the town of Heraklion. And we're going to walk through it and have a little bit of a tour. This is a man who excavated Knossos. His name was Sir Arthur Evans. And he is also responsible for the controversial, let's say, restoration of a lot of the site. You see, Knossos looked pretty much like Festos, the other archaeological site that we visited this morning. Had not a whole lot of remains, but when Sir Arthur Evans found it, he paid for the excavations with his money, and he paid for some of the restorations because he felt that, you know, he wanted to show the world what the Minoans lived like and what their houses and their structures looked like. So this is what he did. The whole palace and area of Knossos extends over a hill. We're sort of at the top of that hill right now, and the palace itself is on the back side of the hill. It's really a beautiful setting here as well. There are usually wild peacocks all around. I'm going to see if I can find any. Anything that is higher than about waist level, so anything higher than these stones here, anything that is painted red, anything that is white like that's concrete, all of these things are restorations. So the original bits are like this in front of me here. A lot of all of these stones are original. A lot of the stone is actually alabaster, and you can see what the alabaster looks like. Here it's from the rain. It's been eroded over the millennia. Knossos is also dates from approximately 4,000 years ago. This color red, which as I said earlier, is this is a reconstructed column. The red is that classic Minoan red. The columns are really unique. They're different from the classical period Greek columns in that the tops are wider than the bottoms. It's said that possibly the columns would have been made out of wood, out of tree trunks, and the tree trunks turned upside down, and that afforded more stability to the building when the wider bit was at the top, and also more room for people to move around in the rooms where these columns were holding up the ceiling with the thinner bit down at the bottom. So this is why they look a little bit different. They look a little bit skewed to our eye because we're used to seeing columns that are a bit thinner at the top and wider at the bottom. But this is the classic Minoan column. Wherever you see white, which of course is reconstructed, it would have been wood. Here again, a reconstruction. You can see some frescoes, which are copies of original. Minoan men are always represented as having this terracotta color skin, whereas later on we'll see some frescoes of women, and they always have a white skin. Here's an interesting fresco, which has white skin, so you would say, yes, well, that's a female. Well, it's disputed, actually. Some scholars believe this is a prince. This is, of course, a replica, a reconstruction of an original fresco that's found in the museum. And but here you can see the classic Minoan red in the background. These floral patterns are very common in Minoan fresco painting, and would have been very similar to in Festos, where we visited this morning, what would have decorated the king and the queen's megaron, or the meeting area. So again, not sure. Could be a female figure, could also be a prince. We're not really entirely sure, but for the most part, White was reserved for female Minoan frescoes, and that terracotta red for males. So we're going to head over to the main square and to the area which is called the throne room, where the king would have received visitors, important visitors. Here is the room that would have been the throne room, not in the sense that we imagine, meaning where the king sits all day long. It probably would have been a place where ceremonies took place, the benches to the left and right, again, where visitors might have sat and either waited to speak to the king or participated in different ceremonies. And we are in an antechamber where there's a copy here of that throne. The area that we're walking through here is known as the central court, and its main function was to connect all the different wings of the palace. So behind us there is the area that's known as the throne room, and then over here on the hillside underneath the scaffolding is the Queen's apartments and other royal apartments. Unfortunately, because of the corona situation, we're not allowed to go down to actually see the Queen's apartments up close, which is a shame because they are gorgeous and they've been restored. But you can really get a good idea of how the royal family would have lived here in Knossos almost 4,000 years ago. There's a beautiful bathtub. As I mentioned, the same in Festos, there was running water, there were pipes, but even more elaborate here, and you get a better idea of it because of this restoration. You can see sort of the floor plan down here of some of the royal apartments. And as with Festos, Knossos was built on the hillside, down below me, at the end of where the palace was, there was a river that connected the palace to Heraklion, the city of Heraklion, and well, it wasn't called the city of Heraklion then, but to the area which is today Heraklion, and the sea, so that's behind me this way. But it also, being on a hillside, gave it a breeze in the hot summer months, and made it quite strategic as well, because in the surrounding fields you can see any kind of danger coming. Knossos was interesting because it was not a walled city. They weren't scared of anyone, and so they didn't need walls. It was one of the only ancient civilizations not to have walls, and that's very telling, I think, about the society and the advancements and their security and confidence in that time. Coming down now from the central court, we're going to another area on the side of the palace, again reconstructed. You can see that beautiful Minoan red color that was used, and this is just a reconstruction. There's a fresco behind the colonnade there of a bull, and bulls were important to the Minoan civilization. They were a sacred animal, and they were used in a sporting event which was quite popular, that we have fresco representations of, and it was essentially bull jumping. And what was that? That was that a bull would come running at you, a bull with horns, and you would at the very last minute jump up, grab hold of the bull's horns, do a flip over its back, and land either on the backside or behind the bull. So this was something that we're not exactly sure of how they did it, but it's something that's been represented in frescoes. So we think that it was part of a religious ceremony of some kind for the ancient Minoans. Here's an area that's known as the theater area, and also as the Royal Road, because we know that in front of this area with the steps that look like seats, there was a road that continues on straight ahead. So perhaps there were some ceremonies that took place here and people sat around, or maybe this was just the way that the one of the roads leading into Knossos came. But it's a beautiful construction, 4,000 years almost old.